Well, good morning, everybody. I've met lots of you and been to lots of your classrooms and schools. For those that I haven't met, I'm Carmen Coleman. I'm the acting chief academic officer. You know, we have lots of acting going on in Louisville right now. We have the acting superintendent. We have some actors in athletics at U of L. I mean, there's lots of acting. So I have some friends that tease me that say, you know, you can just be anything, I guess, if you just put acting in front of your name. So you can get some leverage out of that. But I just want to tell you that I guess we all know at this point what brings us here and brings this to the level of importance that we, changed a day for students so that we could all be here together. What I want to say from Dr. Polio and I is that we know that the vast majority of our early childhood and Head Start classrooms do an amazing job with kids every day. I cannot tell you the respect that I have for what you do. Some of you know that I was superintendent in Danville, and one of the most fun things I ever did was to take high school teachers with me to early start classrooms, early childhood classrooms, because for them it was pretty different to think about personalizing for kids. How do you do that? And I said, let me tell you who's best at it, and let me show you what 3- and 4-year-olds can do when you put the expectations out there, and they were blown away. So I just want you to know that we could not admire and appreciate you more than we do. And we just, obviously we've had some issues. And so as hard as it is in the very fast day-to-day pace, the kids keep coming every day, we had to have a moment to just stop and get together and just reflect a little bit on practices and our systems. And we know that one of the things we've got to do a better job at is making sure that you have the support you need. And so let me say from the district, we hope that you will not hesitate to reach out for any kind of support that you need, whether it's supplies for your classroom or just to say, hey, I need a minute. I just need a minute. And we want to make sure that you leave today knowing how to get that support. So again, I just want to say welcome. We so appreciate that you're here, and just know that we, again, could not be more proud of or inspired by the work that you do. And what I'll ask is that everybody today just be really intentional about the nuggets that you can take away, because I know that there are things that all of us can learn. So we're glad you're here. We're glad our guests are here. I'm going to turn it over now to Captain Bob from Head Start, and he'll introduce himself and talk more about what brings him to this work. So thank you.
Good morning, all. So I'm not real good standing behind a ambo back here, and you'll see my hand shaking, but it's involuntary. So if all of a sudden I start shaking, don't worry about it. I won't fall over. So I'm the regional program manager from Region 4. And so what that is it's out of Atlanta. And all of ACF across the country, we're broken down into 10 geographical regions. And then we have Region 11, which is American Indian and Alaska Native, and Region 12, which is Migrant Seasonal Head Start. And so I oversee the largest region in the country. So that includes you all. And so I oversee Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. And I've been in my position in Atlanta for 2 years. And previous to that, I was the regional program manager for Region 11, which is the American Indian Alaska Native program in Washington, D.C. And I oversaw all the tribal programs and Alaska programs in 26 states. And previous to that, I spent 20 years as the early childhood health and safety specialist for the Indian Health Service. And so I served many different tribal communities across the country. So one of the important pieces of Head Start is our cornerstone of Head Start. And can we hear that noise? Okay, it's like locusts. It might be the time. So one of the cornerstones of Head Start back in '65 was about comprehensive services. Ooh, that's aggravating. You can tell I got a problem. See, and so those comprehensive services included medical, dental, mental health, nutrition, education. All of these wrapped around into basically providing, I'll say, love for lower income families and children. And each day we have the opportunity to serve in Head Start here 1,500 children and families. So that's about 1,300 for Head Start and 200 plus for early Head Start. And many of these children come from homes where they might not have a toothbrush. They may not have a full meal. They might not have a great night of sleep. And so when we receive these children at our Head Start centers, we're receiving them with the utmost love, respect, nutrition, education, health, mental health, oral health. We're providing them services that no one else might be able to provide them. And so what I really ask all of you to do is really to love each child and love each moment. I understand each day that there's stress in each day. I oversee about 345 grants, 175,000 children and families, and just under $2 billion in awards. So every day I'm signing these awards and making sure that I'm not wearing orange. And so every day I hear stories from you all, from moms, from dads, from community members, from grandma and grandpas, and about good things and about not so good things. And so as Dr. Coleman stated, obviously we're all well aware of some of the situations that occurred, but also we want to focus on the strengths that we all have and the love that we're providing to all these children and families in our communities. And so, although we need to address the issues around, corporal punishment, around unsupervised children, and we're getting there, and I know that Rena and the leadership team, everyone's getting there and training with you all and adjusting policies and procedures, but we also need to talk about your mental health, your wellness, and your safety within the classrooms. And I don't mean safety from the children. I mean your own safety as far as knowing when you've reached your point. So I think Rena's been using tapping out. And so we all need to know that we all have triggers, right? It's a dialogue. Do we all have triggers? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. And so I know my youngest daughter, and she's older now, but when she was younger and she hit that highest pitch, it's I love you, baby girl, I gotta go. And so we all have triggers. Something triggers us, but we need to know how to cope with that. And we need to feel safe to be able to say, I need a break from the classroom, I need a 10-minute break. And so what we've stressed to Rena and the rest of the management team is that you all need to have that tap out. And, and make sure that you all, if you're up to here, you're not reaching up to here. So we want to make sure that your staff, your wellness is also important to us, and that we understand your wellness, but also understand how we, cope with children, whether they have challenging behaviors or not. Our jobs here, and whether you're pre-K, Head Start, early Head Start, our jobs here is to provide that love and care for the children and families. They don't have these opportunities. Head Start, early Head Start provides that opportunity. So, you know, Amanda and Felice and Damon and Gail and myself, we're here to not only serve you all, but to serve over 1 million children across the U.S. And so what I think it's such a blessing that we all have to provide these services. And for me, for going on 26 years, working in tribal communities and working in Region 4, every day when I have an opportunity to talk to families, when I have opportunities to talk to you all, and especially when I have the opportunities to go into the classroom and to see the children and to see their transitions or their outdoor play, or you all reading to the children, or me getting an opportunity to read to the children, or just to hug the children. It's very important, and it's showing that love and care that we need to provide to these children and families. And so I know we have a really busy day, and I could keep going forever, so I'm going to stop now. Please make sure that you're engaged all day. We're going to have a hefty schedule, but a lot of great information that will, hopefully you all will be able to take back to your classrooms, and also your management team will be able to work with you all closer. And so again, I thank you for taking care of all of our children and families, and I really ask you to make sure that you pay attention to your own wellness, because it's really important. So thank you all, and make sure you have a great day.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Britt McKim. I'm the president of the Jefferson County Teachers Association, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you just very briefly this morning. You know, we take a lot of pride in JCTA in saying that we are a union of professionals, and you are the professionals that we represent. And that professionalism begins with providing a safe and nurturing classroom experience for every child, and that is for every child from pre-K all the way through graduation. And in a lot of ways, it's particularly important as the age of the child gets younger, because they are the least able to advocate for themselves and least equipped to deal with a lot of the challenges that they face at home, and that's where you all come in. There are some very serious issues that we are addressing, and I want you all to know that the Teachers Association is your voice in this process, and we are being engaged and involved in very meaningful ways, which we appreciate. And that gives us an opportunity to work with you to provide your voice in the discussions that are taking place about how to improve the experience for all of our kids. So please do not hesitate to communicate if there are ideas or ways to improve. We would love to hear from you about that, so that we can be sure that those are in the conversation as we are planning and moving forward. And don't hesitate to contact us with any suggestions, concerns, issues, and so forth. But mainly I want to assure you that the teacher's voice is being valued in this, and we will work very collaboratively with the school district and with the Department of Health and Human Services to be sure that our program is on track to be the best it can be, and ideally the best that we can make it in the entire nation. So we look forward to working with Captain Bob and his team, with Carmen and her team, and with you all to find ways to make our program better, because this is 1,500 to 1,600 kids that are depending on us to get this right, because this helps to level the playing field for kids that have particular challenges that they face, and we may make the difference between whether they are successful or not, and that's a very significant responsibility, and we are taking it seriously as we work together on behalf of the kids. So welcome. I know this is going to be a great program. I kind of saw a preview of coming attractions yesterday. Great activities. I think you'll learn a lot, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comments and for the support and for the work the union does on behalf of supporting excellence in teachers. My name's Amanda Bryans, and I'm from the Office of Head Start. I come to you because I don't know exactly why, but my boss is Ann Linehan. She's the acting director of the Office of Head Start, and she asked me to come and spend time with you. And I said, well, I love to be with teachers pretty much, almost more than anything except being with children. Sorry, you're second. But actually, being with teachers and children is the best thing. And but I think she asked me to come because I have a presentation. It's I've dedicated this year to joy and the idea of joy in early childhood classrooms. And also, I was a former Head Start teacher. I was first hired as a Head Start teacher, and I spent also 5 years as a disabilities coordinator and an education manager in a Head Start program. And then I spent 5 years as the director before I went to Washington. So I worked. I've been in your shoes, and I'm just really thrilled to be here with you all this morning. I want you to smell the flowers and blow out the candles. Have you heard that? So you imagine a giant bouquet of your favorite flowers that's in your hands right now. You put your face up to it, take a deep breath in, and then blow out the candles. Don't blow away the other people sitting at the table because they wouldn't like that. But every now and then, I hope that you do that. I also hope that, here's the one we did yesterday, roll your shoulders back. So I heard a TED Talk about doing this. Apparently Americans, our spines are all shaped like S's or something, and they're not really supposed to be. And people in other countries don't have this problem. And supposedly if we roll our shoulders back a few times a day, it will greatly reduce our stress and our back pain and make our spines be more appropriately shaped. So who knew? But it feels good anyway. Also, you should, if you need to stand up, if you can do that. If you need to draw pictures, you should do that. One of my worst fears in life is being boring, so if that starts to happen, I'd appreciate it if somebody could help me out. Maybe tell a story or a joke or something, or wave your hands and say, stop talking, you're really getting boring, because I really don't want to be boring, all right? So relax, be comfortable. We know a lot of you are excellent teachers. We know all of you care about kids. Nobody is questioning anyone's commitment. We want to help paint a picture of what you can do in your classrooms. We want you to be happy. You cannot have joyful classrooms unless teachers are enjoying children. I'm going to talk about that later on. I also wanted to tell you that we asked the district, and they unbelievably and so kindly did this in this really short time. They provided you those composition books. They're for you. They're a present. And maybe you don't think like a 99-cent book is a present, but they're a place for you to write anything you want down. Nobody's going to look at it. You can take notes in it today. Again, you could draw pictures. You could, if you have an inspiration or an idea or something you want to try that's different that you hadn't thought of before, I would encourage you to write it down. I'd encourage you to keep those books in your classroom, and when you notice something or you have a thought or an idea or you get to the tipping point and there's nobody available to step in for a few minutes, you got to wait a while, write down what's happening. Just use those books. They're for you. They're a place all your own. I have an activity for you now. Okay, you ready? And I'm going to call on some people. Or I might let you volunteer. I probably will, because that's more, in keeping with my philosophy. You ready? It's easy. I'd like everybody just to take a couple minutes and think of the most positive experience you ever had with a teacher. And I want you to also think of the most negative experience you ever had with a teacher. It could be the thing that influenced you most, that changed what you did with your life, good or bad. The most positive experience you ever had with a teacher, the most negative experience you've ever had with a teacher. Okay, then why don't you talk at your tables, share those with each other. Is that okay? Talk about your most some people are looking to breast. I'm sorry, but you feel better when you talk about it. Go ahead. Okay, all right. I need a couple people to share, a few people. So who heard something very compelling at their table? Raise your hand. It doesn't have to be your story, because you can make someone else tell their story that you thought was compelling if you want. Okay, so a couple of hands are up. There we go. Man, this is a big room. You're going to get your exercise. Oh, well, I don't know about that. All right. That was very fast. Listen, you know.
Was it that? Hi. Hi. At our table, we noticed that we had a tendency to go to the negative first. Of the positive experiences, it was someone taking extra time to notice our unique qualities and giving us a chance. One person said that a teacher locked her in the closet as a child, and another one said I got rapped over my knuckles on both hands for making a mistake, and another one said that she was in a school with nuns and they were very, very strict.
Thank you. This wasn't mine, but somebody at the table had said that her positive was that her teacher told her every morning that she loved her. And that's something that I think we need to keep in mind because we don't know what our kids are coming into of the morning. And her negative, which is horrific, she had a teacher that told them that they will never amount to anything because they was black. And unfortunately, stuff like that still goes on, and we just have to watch our words and never ever talk to a child like that because they do soak it up. And as an adult, she still remembers that, so it does stick with them what we say.
Okay, I think those are excellent examples. Is there anybody who will die if they can't tell their story? I'm serious. Sometimes I don't want anyone to leave here feeling like they had something important here and they couldn't say it. All right. Okay, it appears like everybody's kind of okay. There were some, one more? Or we're done? Okay. We've got, there were some really good observations in those examples. The first person who spoke talked about it's easier to remember the negative memories. There's a reason for that. Human memory is such that the adverse or things that happen to us are often more strongly kind of encoded in our memory than the more positive things. It's nothing about, it's not like, well, there's something wrong with us because it's like that. The adverse or negative things are very strong, have a very lasting effect or impression in human memory. Often the stories people tell are not only about corporal punishment, but about things that affect their self-identity going forward, like not believing that they're worthy or that they're equal or that they have potential. Sometimes one person yesterday said, well, someone told him he'd never go to college and that made him work twice as hard and go to college. But depending on where you are in the rest of the context in your life, including your family and the resources that you have available to you, that may not have that effect. It may help some people, and a lot of people may say, I guess I'm not really smart, school's not the place for me, I'm not college material. People make those part of their script or their self-identity. I'm bad, I might as well do bad things because I'm bad. This system already told me I'm bad. So I like to do this activity with people. Oh, and the other thing is the positive things. So there are many stories that I've heard that are about positive interactions that totally change the trajectory for somebody. You know, some teacher told a parent that the child should go to college, and the parent says, well, I never even thought about that. You know, I never saw my child that way. The fact that a professional has told me my child has gifts changes how I see my child and my relationship with my child, who maybe I thought was a pain and a challenge and whatever, is different now. Somebody who said, actually, I think you can do mathematics. I'm going to spend some extra time with you on math, and I'm going to get you caught up, and you're going to be something. People's assumptions about, well, of course you're going to be successful in school, even if you're coming to school with not a lot of background and experience, and you're not doing all you flunked your kindergarten readiness assessment, but you know what? I actually believe you're going to go places, because I see things about you that are unique and remarkable and amazing, can change the trajectory of that whole child's life. So I think that is important, and one of the reasons I like doing that activity is that people go to the place where they were when they were a little kid, right? And the other thing about a lot of the negative memories happen when children are really young, and younger grades, and a lot of the positive memories are things when kids are older. And I think that's partly because, you know what, you're easier when you're older, right? You're more mature neurologically, developmentally. A lot of times you're not as demanding in a classroom as the younger kids can be. So, and it's also harder to stuff you in a closet when you're 15 than when you're 7. But you're also really so developmentally vulnerable when you're younger. So I like that, because I like the perspective taking. I'm sorry, but I like returning us all to the place where we felt like that little kid who's getting humiliated or embarrassed or feeling not as good or not as worthy or not as important as other people might be. So, and I think it's humbling, and it's an important reminder when we're working with young children about what their experiences are like. All right, so this presentation is about the research on the positive and negative effect, or positive and negative, the effects of positive and negative interactions on child development. And everybody knows that, right? You're all like, yeah, I know positive interactions are good for child development and negative interactions are not good. Anybody have any argument with that? It doesn't mean that you don't survive adverse experiences. It doesn't mean you can't grow from things that happen that are less than positive. But let's face it, every child has got lots of experiences that are less than positive. It's part of life. But we're talking about kind of the intentional practices that have to do with how adults interact with young children. Part of the reason I like to show this is that we were all raised, right? We're grown-ups now. We had parents. We've been parents. And our own parents did not always use positive practices with us. And we didn't always use positive practices with our own children. And nobody can say, my mama or my daddy did a bad job raising me. So I'm going to be really cautious thinking about whether the practices I'm using are okay or not okay. So I want to bring people's attention to that. I like to go through this presentation because of that, and I'll do it. Or I won't, because the slides might not advance. You might have to imagine the next slide. Oh, good. Okay, Head Start's purpose. Y'all know Head Start's purpose? Somebody say it. Okay, indistinct mumble, good. So it's to promote children's school readiness. We think of school readiness in the broadest sense of children ready for school, schools ready for children, and parents ready to support their child's development. But in our act, it talks about promoting the school readiness of low-income children by, I can't even read it. Oh, yes, by supporting their cognitive and emotional development through health, education, nutrition, family engagement and services that are based on the individual needs of the child and family, something like that, right? Very tricky. Oh. All right, so you know child maltreatment is often when people think about child maltreatment, they talk about often physical, children's being hurt physically, and that certainly is a kind of child maltreatment. Being humiliated or is a form of child maltreatment, and withholding food, isolating children, those are also forms of child maltreatment, and of course neglect. like a delay. All right, so we know from research that child maltreatment has a negative effect on child development. It's associated with a number of harmful short-term outcomes, including delayed physical growth, neurological changes, mental health problems, and aggression. So one of the great ironies is that children who display some aggressive behavior may also be more likely to experience some maltreatment, in response, and often that makes them be more aggressive. So, which is understandable. Again, when you think about your own negative experiences with a teacher, which may or may not have been abuse, they often make people feel angry, embarrassed, humiliated. They often cannot act upon those feelings in the moment, and they kind of carry them with them and act them out later. And there are detrimental long-term effects as well, including increased risk of alcoholism, depression, drug abuse, eating disorders, obesity, early high-risk sexual relationships, smoking, suicide, and certain chronic diseases. And again, you're thinking, well, one day in an early childhood classroom can't cause those kinds of things. And I would say probably not, if everything else surrounding the child is as it should be. I would also say that children are really variable. Some children are incredibly more sensitive and vulnerable than other children, and even one or two adverse experiences can have really negative long-term effects for children. Those outcomes and those behaviors are, of course, in direct contradiction to Head Start's mission to provide to promote children's well-being and their success in school and life. On the other hand, there's an equally strong body of research showing that respectful and secure relationships between teachers and children support positive child development. We have studies of teacher-child relationships where we see that young children with secure relationships with teachers have better peer interactions and positive relationships with other teachers into the future. Research has shown that teachers' interaction styles with children help children build positive and emotionally secure relationships with adults. So again, you're thinking about, well, the teacher is forming this positive relationship with the child, which is actually contributing to the child's ability to have a more positive relationship with a parent, as well as with other teachers in the future, which that's the kind of thing that changes the trajectory of life for kids in Head Start. We know that when teachers, their smiling behaviors, when teachers smile, use affectionate words and appropriate physical contact, that can help children have positive responses toward teachers and interactions with teachers. Again, so building the repertoire for children of those behaviors helps them, the child, actually have more positive relationships with teachers in the future. Children whose teachers show warmth and respect toward them, for example, teachers who listen when children are talked to, when children talk, who make eye contact and who treated children fairly, have more positive and competent peer relationships, which again, then peer relationships become a supportive factor for children's continued development. So you're creating the kind of vortex of more positive outcomes by the positive treatment and relationships that you're having with children. Another point that I like to talk about, and when I was getting ready, I talked to everyone in the office of Head Start before I came here. So if I become jumbled, it's all their fault, because they all had a lot of things and ideas. But one person said to me, most of the children in Head Start, kind of on average, are like 1,000 days old. Like, they haven't been here very long, and a lot of things even that we label as things like challenging behavior are because they haven't really learned anything different, and because that behavior that we're calling challenging is a reaction to something that's happened or what they do. So children need to learn social and emotional development skills, just like they need to learn colors and to label letters and shapes and numbers. So, right, that's an obvious thing, but I think we always need reminders. We think about children and how they develop, and we know that some children develop fine motor skills really quickly, and it may take them longer to know the names of letters in the alphabet. And other children, run early and are amazing with their gross motor skills, but maybe they still don't know their colors all the way when they're 4, even though they're way. They're more like 6-year-olds in gross motor, but they're more like 3-year-olds in terms of colors. Well, social and emotional skills are all in that menu of things kids are doing. Some children really surge ahead on that, and other areas might lag a little. And then, social and emotional might plateau and the other areas come up. Other children may surge ahead in different areas, and they need more support on social and emotional development skills. So some of what we're going to talk about is how you recognize where children are in terms of social and emotional development, and how you scaffold those teaching and learning experiences so kids continue to develop in that way as well. Teachers need to learn how to teach those skills. I think we give a lot of lip service to social and emotional. Even, I'm going to take credit because I had a big fit about I wanted social and emotional to be separated in the performance standards by an and. We used to always say social hyphen emotional skills, and it occurred to me like they're a little bit different, right? Social skills are about how we're learning to interact with other people, and emotional skills are largely about things like self-regulation and identifying feelings and being able to do some internal problem solving. That's a little bit different, and I wanted to separate it so we could more intentionally think about how do we teach children about social skills and how do we teach children about emotional skills. We need to think about how to support children's positive social behavior by modeling that behavior. And I think, as been said, everybody needs ongoing support and development to do this. You need tons of opportunity to reflect on your practice, think about what's working. I hear so much about children and all the challenging behavior, and I understand. I am more worried about children who maybe aren't exhibiting, or as worried about children who maybe are not exhibiting challenging behavior but have got big stuff going inside. They may be perfectly compliant people who line up exactly straight and stay sitting at their table when they're supposed to, who have got huge worries and are anxious and have nowhere to go with that. Those children need as much support as the children who are racing ahead of you and trying to pull the fire alarm or whatever. And so I think, and you also need a lot of humor. In addition to the ongoing, part of the ongoing training and support to me is the space to say, oh, you'll never believe what happened in my room today, in a playful way with peers who can understand, because there is no question that it is incredibly hard work. It can be hard, frustrating, time-consuming. It's an art and a science, and it takes a lot of practice, but you can do it. And now it is my great pleasure to turn the presentation over to my friend and colleague, Dr. Gail Joseph. She's the star of our day today. She is known nationally for her work in supporting children's social and emotional development and helping teachers work with children with challenging behavior. She's an educator of teachers in training. She is one of the founders of Early Ed U. Have you guys heard of that? It's a baccalaureate completion program. It's very grassroots, but I early on heard Gail say that it's going to kind of disrupt higher education. It's a really new way of looking at how we prepare teachers to work with young children. Gail is also a mother herself and a dog owner. So with no more ado, I'm turning, a cat too? Wow, I haven't kept up. Okay, here we go, Gail.
Thank you so much, Amanda. So Amanda, I don't know if you knew this. Yeah, big applause for Amanda. Okay. Everyone can hear me okay? All right. Yeah, was that a yeah? No? Is this better if I'm like closer? Yes, okay. So Amanda, I don't know if you knew, but when you were doing this, I was just advancing the slides because I think I know, and that's why there was a little bit of a delay. I think someone up here saw it and they were kind of laughing. So, but anyway, so I might need you to do the same for me, friend, if this doesn't work. All right? Okay. So I'm gonna do a little bit of introductions, but I'm gonna start with just a story about my son. I do have a son and a daughter. I'm gonna start with a story about my son because it was occurring to me. You cannot hear me. Okay. Did you turn this off? Oh, you're holding it like this. Is that better? Okay, good. This is going to be a long day. And no one will want to use this mic after this. All right, I'm going to tell you about a story about my son. So my son has, I would like to say, had this habit, but it's not quite gone yet. This is going to make you not think I'm a very good interventionist. But so my son had this thing where I would ask him questions or say something to him, and this also, he did this to his teachers too, but you'd say, his name's Waylon, Waylon, you know, and you'd ask him a question, he'd say, yeah, and I would always follow that with, yes, right? And so I'd ask him another question, yeah, and I'd follow it with, yes, and I asked him, you know, and we went on and on and on for, you know, years. It drove his teachers crazy, it drove us crazy. And we were in the car one day, and I said, Waylon, and he said, yeah, and I said, yes. And then I said, wait a minute, honey, you know when you say, yeah, and he said, yeah. And I said, and then you know how mommy says, yes, and he said, yeah. And I said, what do you think I'm trying to do? And he said, agree with me? I thought, you know, I want to say yes to everything that everyone has said as they've been up here before me. I'm in total agreement and very akin to everything that that Amanda said. So you might hear some repetition there as well. So yes, I'm in agreement. He still says yeah, but that intervention does not work very well. So I want to thank the Office of Head Start for inviting me to come here, and I want to thank all of you for being here. This is amazing that you're taking a day to think about supporting young children. And I was thinking a little bit about it while I was sitting over there. I was thinking, oh my gosh, there are like at least 700 of you out here. And if all of you have at least been working for a year in early learning, we have at least 700 years of experience to draw upon. That's pretty phenomenal. And then I was asking some of your administrators about the numbers of children that you're serving. And I started to think that you, in, of course, partnership with children's families, you are raising Louisville. That's pretty amazing. That's amazing. And so I feel really privileged. Can't hear. I feel really privileged that you are, oh, you said can't hear. I thought you said hear, hear. I thought I was getting a little shout out. All right, I'll take it. All right. So I just think that's pretty amazing. All right, so we're going to talk about positive behavioral support. I'm here from the University of Washington, which is in Seattle, Washington. So I am 3 hours behind you. So right when you start slowing down, I'll be finally waking up. So let's hope that this all works out with our time zone change. I am here to talk about positive behavioral support for young children, and I'm going to tell you some things that you have been doing for a really long time. And when you hear things like that you've been doing for a really long time, this is your time to pat yourself on the back and say, I do that already, or I see you do that already, or you're really good at that. Okay? So this is your time to say, yep, I got it. And for you to feel validated that you're doing what the latest science would tell us is how to optimize children's social emotional development, but also how to prevent challenging behavior in your classrooms. So it's an opportunity to validate. But I'm also hoping you might learn a little something new, a little practical strategy along the way as well. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And I want you to take 1 minute and tell your neighbor at your table the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours. Okay, about 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to bring you back up here, so if you can hear me, show me 5. All right, that's going to be the way that we're going to get back together, is when I turn you loose to talk, and then I'm going to say, show me 5, and that's how we'll do that. So this is a great practice, because as Amanda alluded to, as Captain Bob alluded to, you know what, this work is hard. Supporting young children is really hard work, and it's physically draining, it is emotionally draining, and we have to be at our best when we do it. And one of the things that helps us be at our best is when we're feeling well, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on today. But one quick way for you to start your day before children even arrive is to share with your teaching team what's the most positive thing that's happened in the last 24 hours, and to prime yourself for that positive thinking, for that positive emotion. And that's going to set you up to support the social and emotional development of young children. It's something you can do with children too. You could end a closing circle by saying, hey, what's the most positive thing that happened today? And have everyone share out. You would feel great as a teacher, and children would be thinking and reflecting on what's a positive fact from today, because it takes extra work for us to ingrain those positive experiences. So this is a great way for you to start a staff meeting even. What's the most positive thing that happened, and how can we get more of that going for you? It's a great conversation starter at your dinner table with your families, right? Instead of saying, what happened today? You can say, what's the most positive thing that happened? And it really changes the tone. That's one little practical strategy. All right, let's go to our next slide. Okay, we are going to talk about challenging behavior in classrooms. My guess is that if you're spending time in an early learning classroom, you're seeing some challenging behavior, experiencing some challenging behavior. And we're going to talk about some positive behavioral support strategies to both prevent and address challenging behavior. But first, I want us to just watch some video clips of some challenging behavior in action. Thank you, Mike. You just have to go there, and then go down to the... We can imagine some challenging behavior occurring in classrooms. There we go. And it's okay if you can't hear it, you can just see it. Let's watch the little guy in the red shirt. All right. Quick director's cut to another scene. This is when a parent's been asked to go with her child's class to the library. Oh boy. All right, and now here we are in a classroom. This teacher's trying to engage all of these young children. Watch the little guy on the end in the dinosaur shirt, or whatever's on his shirt there. Oh, that guy escapes. He's escaping. We have a small group escapee. Uh-oh. All right, teacher's gonna go get him. Now what's gonna happen at that table? Oh, he's back. He's back. Nope, not for long. Uh-oh, now we got some stuff going on at the table. We've got some hitting. Ay. All right. Okay, and there he goes. And dinosaur has been removed. All right, you've probably seen enough. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so that was some probably familiar scenes to you. You maybe have experienced those, aggression in classrooms. You maybe experienced the going boneless strategy that the mom's experiencing. You've probably had children leave small group table. You've probably had little bits of aggression there. So I'm going to talk about what we call the cycle of challenging behavior. And I'm going to talk about it for two reasons. So the first reason is that you see this kind of little graph that was drawn by hand by me, kind of shaky there. The first reason I talk about this is it helps us understand what we would call the topography or the shape of challenging behavior as it happens in the classroom, right? There's some escalation, there's a critical moment, and then there's some de-escalation, right? So sometimes it helps us think about like where we are in that shape of challenging behavior as it's occurring. But the more important reason I talk about the cycle of challenging behavior is it helps us think about where we can be most effective in supporting young children's social and emotional growth, and where we can help in terms of decreasing challenging behavior in the classrooms. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. I have a few degrees, but the best professor I ever had was a little boy named Jesse, who was in my very first Head Start classroom that I ever taught in. And I'm going to tell you a story about Jesse, so I just want you to imagine for a moment. So we are in my preschool classroom, and I'm looking around, and children are doing what we hope they would be doing, which is playing, engaging, and learning. And so can you advance the slide there? Yep. So at this first green arrow, we go over and see Jesse, and Jesse's in his block corner, and he is doing a great job concentrating. He's building something. He's really intent. So life is good. Children are playing, children are engaged, and Jesse is playing at the block corner. So let's go to the next slide. And now there are more children over at the block corner, which means there are fewer blocks, which means there are more children kind of in each other's space. All right, I was a new teacher, it was my first year, so I didn't have a great, visual supports or anything. So it's getting a little bit chaotic at the block corner, but you know what? When I look, Jesse is still concentrating on building the ship that he has in his mind, and he is doing a great job. So things are good. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is where Jesse has a preschool block corner architectural epiphany, and that is that he needs one special block to finish his ship. And it is at that moment that he realizes somebody else has that special block, okay? And so one more. And this is red for a reason, because this is when we hear that blood-curdling scream from across the room. I quickly run over to the block corner, and I realize what has happened, which is that Jesse has attacked the child that has that block and taken it for his own, all right? So maybe you've had moments like that in your classroom. Now, here's the deal. It is precisely, and unfortunately, at this red arrow moment that many of us, me included, many of us as teachers, as parents, try to teach a social skills lesson. Okay? It's at that moment. So we say things like this, and if you have not said these things yourself, I know if you spent time in an early learning classroom, you have heard them. So we say things like, Jesse, use your, and sometimes not those words, no, right? Okay, so we might say use your words. We might say, Jesse, we share our toys. We might say, Jesse, look at his face. You need to say you're sorry. We might say, Jesse, hitting is not okay. We might say, Jesse, you need to calm down. So let me unpack those lessons that, again, if you haven't said them, I know you've heard them. Let's unpack those for a minute. So use your words. Absolutely. We want young children to learn some peaceful ways to resolve problems. And if they have verbal speech, yes, we want them to use their words. That is an excellent lesson. That content is excellent. That's something that we want young children to learn. We want children to share their toys and materials. That's how they're going to learn in a group, which is how they're going to learn for the rest of their formal schooling. We want children to share toys and materials. That's a great lesson. That content is great. We want young children to know how and when to use an apology. It's an incredibly important lifelong relationship repair skill. How to say, I'm sorry. Absolutely, that content is great. We want young children to know that hitting is not okay, right? That they can touch their friends gently, that any kind of physical or verbal violence is not okay in our classrooms. And we want young children to know how to calm down or how to manage their strong emotions when they're in an upsetting situation. Absolutely. So all of those lessons have incredibly good content. So when those lessons that you're teaching at that moment, the content is good. It aligns with the Head Start Child and Outcomes framework. It aligns with your early learning guidelines. We know if young children leave your classrooms with that great foundation in knowing those things, that they're on a pretty good developmental trajectory in terms of their social and emotional and behavioral development. So if the lessons are great, what's the problem? The timing. The timing is lousy. The timing is totally ineffective. Teaching at those red arrow moments is ineffective for a few reasons that I bet you're already thinking about, but I think they bear repeating. So the first one, this is Captain Obvious. The first one is the aggression already happened. So you kind of missed your opportunity, right? Too late. Okay, that's one reason why it's not very effective. Another reason why it's not very effective, this is a really important one, is that all of the time and attention that you are using to teach that important content, to teach that social skill lesson after the challenging behavior has occurred, is probably highly likely going to just reinforce that challenging behavior, and probably you can be assured it's going to happen again, right? Because children are incredibly good, I call them behavior economists. They come into classrooms and they can quickly figure out that, you know what, I can try really hard all day. I am 4 years old, I'm bursting with energy, but I can try really hard to do what my teacher is telling me. And really good teachers notice me once in a while and say, wow, thank you for sitting, thank you for listening, thank you for taking turns, right? But I also figured out that if I come into the classroom and if in the first 5 minutes I wipe out all the blocks on the shelves and turn a table over, that I get tons of time and attention from my teacher. It's so important. So when we teach our lessons after challenge behavior, we probably are reinforcing that behavior and highly likely going to see it again. Because even though Jesse attacked the kid to get the block, he got so much of my time and attention that now he starts attacking to get my time and attention. Okay? So it's just like saying, well, that was fun. Here's $5. Do it again tomorrow. All right? So you don't want to set that up. Another reason why this is not a very good time to teach, and this is probably the most important reason, is that if you only wait for these red arrow moments that I know feel like they happen all the time, but in reality they don't, if you're only waiting for those red arrow moments as times to teach social and emotional skill development, children who need it the most will never have enough positive practice opportunities with those skills for you to get them ready for kindergarten. Okay? So, if the red arrow moment is not when we want to teach it, red arrow moment is when we're going to keep everybody safe and calm, then when do we want to teach social and emotional skills? Back at the green arrows. All right? And we also want to put in place all kinds of things in our classrooms that might decrease the number of red arrow moments that occur anyways. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so we go to the next slide. All right, so this is where we're going to get a little honest. So Captain Bob talked about triggers. He talked about his daughter's the highest pitch. So I want you to just turn to your neighbor, and remember there's a lot of you, so I'm going to call you together with Show Me 5. I want you to turn to your neighbor. I want you to just say, what is your behavior hot button? What behavior that a child might engage in kind of gets you. Not what child, what behavior, okay? So share that at your tables. All right, show me 5. Okay. I did a little ear hustling. I heard a few things. I heard spitting. I heard biting. I heard running away. But what are some others? Yell some out. Kicking, scratching, calling names, spitting, biting. Did I hear whining? Yeah. I used to have an assistant teacher that would say, I do not speak whinies, and it didn't help, but she felt good saying it. All right, what else? What was it? Throwing things? Furniture. Running away. Am I getting all of them? What was that? Blank stares? Blank stares. I don't have to listen to you. Disrespecting. Okay, all right. Okay, show me 5. All right, I'm going to ask you, that is quite a list, all right? It's not uncommon from other preschool classrooms that I have been to and that other preschool teachers say, but I know it's quite a list. I'm going to ask you to do something that's really challenging. All right, so I want you to now think about this. This is hard because people want to use more than one word, but I want you to just come up with one word. I want you to think when that moment happens, when a child engages in a behavior that pushes your hot button, I want you to just tell me, how does it make you feel? I want one feeling word. Share that with your neighbor.